Welcome to the Robert Hunt Financial Market Update. It's your host,
Lucy Hunt
and Robert Hunt, where we look at the week's financial news that can be a bit confusing, misleading, and take you off course. We hope to make it actionable,
understandable, and clear.
What a week, and therefore,
what a show.
What a show. A lot of folks in the community assumed, understandably so, that because we were on the water, Lucy and I are on the water, we couldn't possibly produce a podcast for Robert Hunt Financial Market Update Nation. But we thought this was just too important. We've seen too much this week. We've learned too much this week not to share it with you. My co-host Lucy Hunt here especially has learned a lot. Lucy, what have you learned about Alaska, which is where Lucy and I have been, or the gold rush in your travels thus far?
I learned that in the gold rush, there's a lot of people that died.
That's exactly right. So do you remember how a lot of these folks perished?
With no food, they died.
It was a really shocking data point that we were given. We were in Alaska. They're telling us about Alaska. And in this first initial wave of gold rush folks into the Yukon Territory, 100,000 prospectors came into the territory. 70,000 died. And the other 30,000 came back in rough shape with very little to show in the way of profits. And it did remind us a little bit of investing, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Because we got to keep our cost low. And for many of these prospectors, their costs were prohibitively high. Everything cost more in these towns, which doomed a lot of their expeditions. They could never find enough gold to ever pay back the cost. So keeping those costs low. Time horizon long, that was a tough one, wasn't it, Lucy? Mm-hmm. For many of them, their time horizon was not long. Understandably so, these winters crept in, but the local Native American tribes gave many warnings to some of these prospectors not to go up when there was too much snow because of the dangers in the mountain. They ignored them, and avalanches occurred and other terrible natural disasters. So that was tough, wasn't it, Lucy?
Yes.
Did you find any gold, Lucy?
Yes.
You found gold. Eureka! How did you find it?
Actually, people bought it and they just put it in a pile of lots of rocks, then you could find it.
And that's the way you invest. You see, we went to a gold prospecting area where they had already planted the gold in there for us. So we simply had to get out the dirt, right? So lesson there for us was go where the gold is and you can keep your costs low, your time horizon long, and simple. Just go where the gold is, right? Easy for us to say. A lot of those men, of course, had tremendous courage prospecting and did a lot in opening up the West and various railroad routes. But we learned a lot, didn't we, Lucy? This show, we had so many people send us data this week. We're actually going to talk about an Arizona State study that Mr. Marc Andreesen, the famed venture capitalist from Andreesen Horowitz, put out and what that means for us. He meant it one way. We're going to take it another way. We also, the show had so many folks who sent this data in about Mr. Jerry Buss. As many of you know, the Los Angeles Lakers were sold, at least the transaction appears to be done, for about $10 billion. Would it have been better if Mr. Buss had just invested in an index fund? 1979? And then, of course, we'll revisit our learnings of the Alaskan gold rush and how that affects our thinking of investing today. Are there other corollaries to what was being experienced back then? What do you think, Lucy?
Yes.
I think so, too. Otherwise, we wouldn't have put it on the show. But let's start at the top. This Arizona State study, fascinating. There's a gentleman named Hendrik Bessenbinder, which perfect name for a professor of finance. Mr. Hendrik Bessenbinder, a professor of finance at Arizona State University, he documented an extraordinary pattern of wealth creation in public equity markets, the data shows. And now this is something I've mentioned on the show before, so they're a little behind the market update. No judgment here. He said nearly 60% of companies that have been public in the U.S. over the last century or so have failed to create value, defined as earning total shareholder returns in excess of 1 month Treasury bills. Let's pause there. All you have to do is have returns better than 1 month Treasury bills, which just think about money market funds. That's basically what you're getting there. So today it's about 4.2 or something percent, but this is throughout the last 100 years. All you have to do is beat that. Check this out. Only 2% of companies were responsible for the 90% of the aggregate net wealth creation. I'm going to say that again. Only 2%, that's 2 in 100 companies were responsible for more than 90% of the aggregate net wealth creation. Now, we've given different data that effectively says the same thing about how difficult it is to pick individual stocks and do so effectively, and why it's better to buy the whole haystack instead of finding the needle in the haystack, what Mr. John Bogle told us. But this data was actually put out by Mr. Marc Andreesen. What Mr. Andreesen was doing is he was trying to remind us there are a lot of folks who are critical of the venture capital space. Do you know what venture capital is, Lucy?
No.
Oh, well, let me inform you. Venture capital is often referred to as early stage investing. Oftentimes they have angel investing, which is some of the earliest investing where people will give a couple $100,000, friends and family rounds, they call it, to try to start a company up. And then venture capital companies will come alongside and give millions of dollars to companies that show more promise, but it's very early stage and it's very risky. Many of these investments fail, Lucy. Many, in fact, most. Now, what Mr. Andreesen, this is of course the criticism to many venture capital funds is, gosh, if you really don't hit on a Facebook or something like that or a Google, you're really not going to do very well. What Andreesen is saying is, hey, this is Andreesen's quote. He says, long-term public market investing, that's us with index funds, Lucy, equals venture capital investing whether you like it or not. Now, here's where Mr. Andreesen, I might turn it around on him a little bit. He's forgetting a few elements that are materially different. What about the cost to invest? We want to keep our cost
low.
Ooh, he's not saying these venture capital funds have different costs, or of course he's not saying that directly. He's not even implying it, but we, of course, see this and say, no, it's not the same, Mr. Andreesen. You're charging per, I'm going to guess here, but about 2% management fee, maybe 20, 30% of the profits. Yeah, that's very different. And moreover, not diversification. And these venture capital funds, they may have 10, 20 different investments. That's nowhere near as many bets as you can make with, say, VT, which is Vanguard's Total World Market Index, which has thousands and thousands and thousands, 8,000 or 9,000 different securities. So when someone tries to tell you, oh, you index funder, you're just doing what venture capital funds are. You're betting on these, these only 2%. All right, remember what Mr. Bessenbinder, great last name, said? Only 2% of the companies were responsible for more than 90% of the net wealth creation. We'll own that all day long because we can do it for 6 basis points or 4 basis points and instant liquidity and total control and no fee structure that's burdensome. It keeps our investing simple. And we like simple, don't we?
Yes.
Why do we like simple, Lucy?
Because it's not very hard. It's just simple.
It's not hard. And there's nothing wrong about easy, so long as it's the correct path. It's got to be that correct path. Because there are a lot of paths that are wide and lead to destruction, but the narrow way is the good way, right? Leads to life. So in investing, though, we got to be careful. We got to keep our eyes peeled because oftentimes folks like Mr. Andreesen will say, hey, look, public market investing is just as risky. Not so, Mr. Andreesen. With great respect, we really like Mr. Andreesen and find him to be a thought leader of our time. He popularized the internet, developed a Netscape browser. Wonderful futurist by any account. But we like our index funds, and we certainly see that, yes, there are only a few companies that are responsible for the value creation. We own it. Our solution to this is own them all. Own them all. This, by the way, makes it even more difficult when someone says, hey, I'm going to create some sort of a fund structure where we're only going to own 10 or 20 securities. When I hear that, my blood starts to thicken, and I'm thinking, I get the blood pressure in my head thinking, the risk they're taking is incredible. If you miss on the next NVIDIA, if you miss on the next Meta, if you miss on the next Google or Berkshire Hathaway, you'll underperform. There's no doubt. It's in the Spiva report. Very, very difficult to do. And then we always appreciate it, Robert Hunt Financial Market Update Nation, when you send us the articles to discuss, lets us know what you're thinking about, what you're seeing. boy, was this a good one. We got this a couple different times. Mr. Jerry Buss bought the Lakers in 1979. And I had a couple of you send this saying, hey, wait a second. Wait just a second. The index fund, he bought the Lakers for $67 million in 1979. He exited for 140 times his money for $10 billion at 2025. Did you know? That's $3 billion less than we would have made if he bought an index fund. I was shocked when I saw this. I thought that couldn't be. The NBA has done so well. These team values have inflated so considerably, and the Lakers selling at $10 billion I thought was an astronomical figure. It seemed like it was selling like an art piece or some collectible. But the index fund would have actually beat by $3 billion. Now, here's where I'll take a viewpoint that may shock you. It was probably better for Jerry to buy the Lakers. One thing I have learned the longer I've done this, give people advice in exchange for money to help better their financial situation, simple works. And our time horizon we want to keep
long.
What do you think the best way for Jerry Buss to keep his time horizon long was? It was to invest in an asset that he loved and would never sell. In this instance, it worked out. Had he bought a team that was bad or in the wrong league that failed, that would have been terrible for his investment prospects. But he bought an asset he liked. This is why oftentimes in my meetings I ask, first meeting, especially I'll ask for their financial testimony. I want to know how people think about money investing, what they like to do, what energizes them. In my view, what's the highest likelihood investment they'll stick with for 50 years? Do you think the Buss family is lamenting not investing in the S&P 500? I doubt it. Partly because the Lakers were probably so fun for them to own. Partly because they may know, I'm not sure we would have stuck with the market. There were a lot of ups and downs. That instant liquidity sometimes, as it should be an advantage, for many it is not. The idea that, hey, in 1999 he could have clicked the sell button, or in 2008 he could have clicked the sell button, or 2001. There's so many times where people were yelling at you to sell your stocks. When you own the Lakers, it's so much fun. You stick with it. So I oftentimes will surprise folks I serve by saying, oh no, keep that little land track. Just keep it. Don't sell it. I say that not because I think it'll outperform the stock market, but I think in many instances, you'll be able to hold on to it for a long time and not be tempted to sell it quick. Speculate. We want to get away from speculation, that short-term thinking. We want to be involved in investment with long-term horizons. So I'm actually cool with the Buss family. It was a shock. Now, for those who are into the data, you must know the timing here. The market did incredibly well because they chose 1979. The 70s were a brutal decade for the market. It looked like the market traded flat. It really was down 50% on an inflation-adjusted basis. Inflation was raging those times, and in 1979, the market was effectively written off as a who needs it. So great timing to invest. And so we could cherry pick different NBA owners, and they would have done far better owning their NBA team. This particular time, yes, the S&P 500, believe it or else, was the superior investment vehicle to the Lakers. Anyway, I was shocked. I still am kind of shocked that could be the case. And then as we close, we consider all the lessons we've learned here on our Alaskan adventure. Lucy, what other lessons do you have for our listeners about this grand adventure?
We're going to learn about the Klondike Gold Rush.
Yeah, we did. We learned a lot about that. A lot of dangerous moves. One of the things I appreciate, I'll go back to the local Native American tribes. There was a deal cut by a lot of these prospectors that the only group that can provision and carry their packs were this local Indian tribe. Now, this tribe said, hey, we'll be nice to you so long as you only hire us. So they The Indian tribe made good money. They offered advice and guidance to these prospectors. These prospectors were they call it gold fever. You know what gold fever is, Lucy?
Mm-hmm. They really want gold so bad that they don't really care about anything else.
They couldn't talk sense into any of these men, young men typically, to risk mitigate, to think about all the things they might need in order to survive. These Indian tribes had survived in this area for a very long time. And so a lot of times they did not take their advice and they died. They didn't make it, couldn't make it. And that gold fever, I see that happen in investing as well. The human psyche has not changed that much from 1892 to present. And when someone says, and there was one of the stories that went out is someone got one pan of gold in the Yukon, just one thing of dirt, and it had 3 pounds of gold in it. That's just one pail, one little scoop of dirt. It was just a super rich, prolific resource in that particular area. Well, that rumor got out, and it just became a absolute, no pun intended, gold rush. Everybody and their brother came up here to try to make a nickel and make it quick. So what we can be thinking about is, I'm prone to the same thing, and so are you. Are there modern day gold rushes where folks are rushing in awfully quick in order to make a quick buck, but they're not necessarily listening to their local guides about all the dangers along the way? I think there are many. You don't know it, though, until 30, 40 years later. So the best thing you can do is to make sure you have counselors and advisors with you to keep you from hurting yourself. What do you say, Lucy?
Yes.
And so as we are on the water here, Lucy and I are just on the water in a boat off the coast of Alaska. You know what still matters about your investing, Lucy, off the coast of Alaska?
What?
Keep those costs
Low.
Keep your investing
Simple.
and keep your time horizon
Long.
because that's what's going to give you the best shot on your investing journey. Until next week.